Gary Danielson from CBS. Back by popular demand. You killed it last week, Gary.
What?
People love that you were speaking the truth. There was, there was.
But I don't have any songs. If I was a songwriter, I could say, my guy Neuheisel's pretty good.
He's really good. Yeah, if you could only play guitar.
Yeah, I got none of those skills.
You got Ole Miss and Arkansas coming up this weekend, but let's look at the top four here. I have some issues here.
Issues, yep.
Yep. I got issues, and I got issues with the top four. Your thoughts on what the committee gave us last night?
It's a funny committee, I'll tell you that right now. I tell you, I'm just kidding. Next year, nobody's going to want this job. First of all, you got to fly every Monday and Tuesday. I don't. Have they ever heard of a go-to meeting? I mean, geez, I don't get it. Here's what I got to say, Dan. You're up there in sports. Would you ever believe in your wildest dreams that an undefeated defending champion Florida State goes to Miami in a national title game and win, and they don't move? They stay at number 3.
I know.
I swear, I don't understand it.
Tell me, though, that this Jameis Winston situation has not affected, consciously or subconsciously, their ranking.
Sure.
Right?
I tell you, one thing I got to give credit to Florida State for. I mean, it's really, really hard to get fans from around the country. I mean, when you got Notre Dame people, they are pulling for Miami. I mean, that's hard to do.
Yeah.
To get Notre Dame people pulling for Miami. That's how much the hate is out there for Florida State.
But I don't even like what the chairman, Jeff Long, said about Alabama. They're number one because they look better on offense, defense, and special teams.
Yeah.
Okay, that's one thing, but they've beaten one top 25 team, and that was Mississippi State at their place.
I tell you, they're making it up as they go along, and I understand why. They have to, at the end, I mean, they got in there in this committee, and they said, wait a second, we got to do this every week? Are you kidding me? And we have to, at the end, then have the credibility to put the teams in there we need to put in there as the best at the end of the year. So I think the strategy by the committee is very sound. They keep moving teams around because the worst thing they want is at the end to not be able to move a team up to that 4th spot. If I was doing the committee, I think you and I could agree on this. I think they should do it just like the playoffs. Right now, there's 3 teams that are in, okay? Alabama's in unless they lose. You're in, okay? Florida State, unless you lose, you're in. Oregon, unless you lose, you're in. The rest of you, there really isn't a 4th team. I mean, let's be honest. We don't know what's going to happen for that 4th spot. But I do predict this. It's going to be 2006 all over again if everybody wins out. Remember that year? That's when the Big Ten and all the talking heads were saying, no, come on. We play the best football up here. Remember, Michigan lost a game late to Ohio State. I think they went for 2 and closed up a game and made it a close game. I think it ended up 41-38. Michigan scored late and got 8 points to make it a tight game, very similar to the way Mississippi State did to Alabama. The committee's going to come down right at the end to, is it a champion, one-loss Ohio State team, or, quote-unquote, our eyes say Mississippi State played, quote-unquote, the best team in the country close on the road. That's going to be the final argument.
This goes back to an SEC bias, whether they admit it consciously or subconsciously. You want to make sure you get a good representation of the best teams in college football, and I don't think they're doing that. I look, Mississippi State, great story, Gary, but I don't think they're the 4th best team in the country right now. I just don't.
Yeah, that's the fun part of it, though. I got to admit, Dan, I mean, that's what separates college football. We can't take that opinion out of it, and it really is the lifeblood. We've had a great season this year, and if it was just 2 teams this year, it would be boring and dull. I get that, okay? But that subjective argument, we really don't know. So then it comes down to, all these things they're throwing out, like you just said, that the head of the committee, Jeff Long, has said. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if Mississippi State is better. I mean, look at who they've played in their non-conference.
Exactly.
I mean, Southern Miss, UAB, South Alabama,
Tennessee Martin,
and then not only that, their crossover is Kentucky Vandy. I mean, their season. I'll tell you what Mississippi State needs very badly. They need Ole Miss to beat Arkansas very badly for that last win to be for a much more quality win. Because if Ole Miss loses, their one quality win will be at LSU, a team who's fading fast, and then they will have they will have, quote unquote, won a game with a loss to Alabama.
He's Gary Danielson, CBS Sports. Got Arkansas coming up this weekend against Ole Miss. USC, UCLA.
I didn't think you'd go there, and I was right about that.
What?
Arkansas, Ole Miss.
No, I wasn't going to go there. We spent too much time on the SEC. Let's.
Well, you know what? Let's change one word though.
Okay.
From SEC bias, ESPN bias to ESPN influence. And I think that is fair. And I think even ESPN had to take a step back and say, you know what? We do carry a big, weight here with how we talk about which teams and how we do game day. It's not necessarily they're for one team or another. Of course they're not. But who gets the most pub, who gets seen the most, is a factor. And I think that's a legitimate concern for the rest of college football.
Well, they're not on the committee, so you can talk about an SEC bias. That has nothing to do with ESPN. But they're in business with the SEC. And right. I said, why would you? It'd be like I own a restaurant or I'm in business with you with a restaurant, but I'm not going to promote it because it doesn't make any sense.
No, but I can see where people around the country say, well, wait a second. We tune in game day and it's an important, influential show. Are the people on that show giving their own opinions? Of course they are. Nobody's is saying anything about that. But it's, the game's on, who's on all the time, the nationally televised games, and the two people are in business together. I think it's normal. I don't think it's accusatory. I think it's normal to say, wait a second, make sure that you and your meetings are being fair to all the rest of college.
Well, if you look at the amount of coverage they give the SEC compared to everybody else, it's usually 2-1 at least.
Well, but remember in 2006 and 2005, it was totally the opposite way. The SEC was crying about it, remember, with the whole Big Ten. So it flops around. I get that. I understand that. But, hey, it's an opinion-based all of college football is opinion-based. I've been in the middle of it, and that's just when you do these games, that's what you deal with. And actually, it's kind of fun, to tell you the truth. I mean, this year, Ohio State's in the middle of it. I mean, a few years ago, it was Auburn. It just flops around the country year after year.
A neutral site, Ohio State, Alabama. Who wins?
I do not think this is the best Alabama team I've seen since I've been in this league.
But who wins?
I don't know. I mean, how am I supposed to know that? I mean, that's the kind of the stuff that I think as talking heads that we are is just silly. You know what? I just think it's silly to say that. I think either team could beat each other. I really
Okay,
do.
good. Then I like that.
It's a great matchup. That's one of the things that Ohio State has going for them, by the way, is one of the arguments against that the SEC used is, look at our recruiting classes and look at all the people we're putting in the NFL. We play better football here, and we're knocking each other off, correct? That's their argument.
Yeah.
Well, look at Ohio State. I mean, they're recruiting and they're putting players in the NFL. This is a legitimate football team, and if you look for a team that is improved, I mean, can you imagine any top team losing their two-time Big Ten MVP, starting the season and building themselves into a football team? I'm going to tell you, that's going to be the argument. That's where Barry Alvarez and Tom Osborne and the rest of that committee is going to come down to. A team that has improved, champions of the Big Ten, or a second team from the SEC.
That's been my big concern is that in all other sports, we reward the team that gets better towards the end of the season.
Exactly.
USC, UCLA, do you care?
Sure. UCLA is, I think, a dynamic team. Jim Mora has done it, has toughened up that football team. I've done that football game. Here's what it is. I think you and I care more than a lot of people in L.A. care. Football is important to a lot of people there. It's, it's something to do before you go out to dinner, So, yeah, I think they're good programs, and I think UCLA still controls their destiny. And I think they're, by the way, a team that could beat Oregon. I really think that their defense could beat Oregon, and that opens up a lot of things for college football.
Melvin Gordon, Heisman, is he leading right now?
I hope so. I mean, I hope people take their vote. One of the things I've been really disillusioned by the Heisman is it's going to the best spread quarterback every year.
Yep.
And that is, I don't think how this trophy or honor was meant to be. I mean, of course, the quarterback from a spread team is going to carry and pass the ball and come up with stats every year. I don't think that's really what we're trying to do. No one's going to match Marcus Mariota's stats. I mean, he's like playing for Paul Westhead in a fast break offense. He's going to have better stats.
Well, but we've seen running backs at Wisconsin put up huge numbers. So
sure.
Melvin, I mean, the offensive line to me they're right up there with if he wins the Heisman, he should break off pieces and give it to his offensive line.
Well, and I think that the way that Ron Dane's career finished up is not helping Melvin Gordon
or Monty Ball.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a factor in it, and that's really what happens in this. People have memories, and you should be. I mean, that's part of it. And speaking of Heisman guys, I mean, again, it just highlights how frustrating this can be. Our sport, we love to do it, but how frustrated it can be. Todd Gurley, what happened to Todd? I mean, it was his 29th carry in a football game, coming off time when he hadn't played in 4 weeks. I think that's where the coaching staff, on all these coaches that have these elite football players, really have to understand it. I've been advocating for years. I remember the story of A.J. Green. Remember the outstanding receiver for the Bengals.
Got suspended.
He broke out his freshman year with Matthew Stafford as his quarterback. Well, he was ready for the NFL. He had to do 2 more years with quarterbacks that Mark Richt didn't want to throw the ball. He had, how frustrating would that be to know you're capable of playing in the NFL and lighting it up, and you've got guys that really can't throw you the ball. Again, these elite athletes, and it's the NFL kind of in bed with NCAA football and not allowing this to happen. And every time I look at it, I think, college basketball is doing pretty good. We're still televising the games. People are still interested in it, and they're managing to put their best into the NBA.
All right, get down off your soapbox.
It's not that big.
I know.
It's just your show back-to-back weeks. That's all I got.
You're a lonely man, aren't you? Thank you, Gary.
Back to the tape. Talk to you later.
Gary Danielson, CBS.